To understand this better, we need to understand what is POCSO. What can we do in certain situations? Now, who is asking for this change and why? That it is going to lower the safeguarding measures and it wants to establish a system which would be child friendly. Families of these teenagers, they use the provisions of this act to get them into trouble. Today, we break down the big debate over the crucial issue which is brewing up in the Supreme Court of India. Many PILs have been filed for bringing down the legal age of consent from 18 to 16 years. And this debate is going to create legal history. What is a PIL? It is a public interest litigation, as we know. And why it has been filed? Because some experts think that if the teenage romance is being criminalized, villainized, then it is not going to benefit the youth, but it is going to actually be detrimental to them. But the government has a very clear understanding of this entire matter. It wants to create safeguards and protection mechanisms to save children from any kind of abuse. To understand this better, we need to understand what is POCSO, under which this legal age has been defined. POCSO is Protection of Children from Sexual Harassment Act 2012, which was implemented in the year 2012. And this particular act aims to protect children from any sort of sexual harassment, abuse. It provides the definition for the term child as anyone under the age of 18 years, which means if anyone tries to have sexual relations with a person who is under the age of 18 years, then it is going to be a criminal act. POCSO refers to Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, which came in the year 2012. This act basically tries to protect children from any kind of sexual abuse, harassment, and pornography. Now, the act defines the term child as anyone under the age of 18 years. And it wants to establish a system which would be child friendly with the provision of special courts as well. POCSO was created to protect minors from any sort of abuse. Therefore, any kind of sexual activity with a person who is under the age of 18 years is going to be criminalized, even if the sexual relation is consensual. The consent will be immaterial in such cases where the person is below the age of 18 years. Now, the debate happens that because there are many stringent rules and stringent regulations and punishments for anyone who is violating these rules, therefore, there is no scope for any kind of adolescent romance to take place in the eyes of law. So, you may ask what is the actual issue in this entire scenario? Well, there has been a rising trend of these teenagers aged 16 to 18 years being prosecuted under the stringent rules and regulations of the POCSO Act, which is the Protection of Children from Sexual Harassment Act. Interestingly, even if the sexual relations happen consensually, the families of these teenagers, they use the provisions of this act to get them into trouble, because this happens between intercaste or interfaith marriages. It can be used like that. Now, this is not going to provide any kind of benefit to the young adults, right? So some legal experts and advocates and thinkers, they are of the opinion that this pushes the dignity of young adults, aged teenagers, aged between 16 to 18 years. It pushes them into hiding. It does not address the problems like teenage pregnancy, and it also strips them of their dignity, which cannot be good for them. Now, what can we do in certain situations, in these situations? And this is a specific reason why some experts are arguing that the age of consent have to be brought down from 18 to 16 years of age. Now, who is asking for this change and why? The answer is Indira Jaising, the senior advocate of Supreme Court and the lead campaigner of this particular issue. As the amicus curiae, that is friend of the court, she has urged the Supreme Court to be more sensitive while they are interpreting the laws with relation to extending or reducing the age of consent. Now, Ms. Jaising recommends an exception, that is, close in age exception, so that consensual sex between teenagers aged 16 to 18 would not be punishable under POCSO or rape laws. Now, why is she saying this? Because through data, we can see that many teenagers are caught in this legal net of POCSO and rape laws, but mostly the conviction rate remains very low, which raises concerns about the misuse of these provisions and trauma which is caused to the teenagers because of these provisions usage. Now, what are the arguments against this lowering of the age from 18 to 16 years? Well, the government is clearly against it. And they have been saying that it is going to lower the safeguarding measures against any kind of manipulation and coercion that may happen from an adult over an adolescent. And if it would be consensual, then under the rape laws, the adults will not be eligible for any kind of prosecution in that scenario. So, which is the reason why they keep on protesting against it. So, the center points to international regulations, constitutional provisions, and the need for a bright line rule. Bright line rule, so there would not be any space left for interpretation, making the age of 18 years as the unambiguous legal age for providing consent. Because according to them, if we are going to lower it to 16, then the scrutiny, the legal scrutiny, will be subjected towards the minors instead of adults in certain kind of situations. And it won't be going to provide any kind of benefits or safeguarding to the minors. So the question remains, what is Supreme Court going to do in this scenario? The Supreme Court, according to me, is going to be really careful about this, because we need to still have an age of consent. It is not going to overhaul the age of consent, but it might allow judicial discretion in certain individual cases. That would allow the leeway for individual cases to be treated in a more sensitive manner, which is anyway what Indira Jaising is talking about. This is going to be a landmark debate, and which has already started brewing, because it talks about the balance between child protection and adolescent autonomy. Now, as future bureaucrats, you need to be having an in-depth analysis of such social topics, social and legal, socio-political and legal topics, for which please stay tuned to Chai with Current, your force multiplier for civil services preparation, especially for the general studies paper.